It's Thursday, October 15th, and this is now on H&N.
This will be a turbulent time. Like I said earlier, I hope, though, people understand the benefit is to do it safely and start restoring our economy.
After several delays, Hawaii welcomes back visitors with a pre-travel testing program.
I also haven't been home in like 5 years.
Even with the relaunch of tourism, some hotels and airlines are planning gradual reopenings.
It was rather disorganized and a little bit of a mess.
Plus, a new jump in coronavirus cases pushes the total number of infected Americans to nearly 8 million. These stories and more coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jonathan and Ashley coming to you here live from the H&N Digital Center. We got so much news to get to today. Let's start with those latest coronavirus numbers.
Hey everyone, health officials say one more patient with COVID-19 has died, bringing Hawaii's official death toll to 184. DOH is also reporting 91 new infections today. The county breakdown shows 74 cases are on Oahu, 13 on the Big Island, 2 on Maui, and 2 residents were diagnosed out of state. Today is the first day of the state's pre-travel testing program, which allows most arriving passengers to skip quarantine if they test negative for COVID 72 hours before their flight. Casey Lund is at the airport with details on what they should expect.
Today is the very first day that visitors and returning residents alike will be able to skip that mandatory 14-day quarantine as long as they test negative for COVID-19 72 hours before their trip to Hawaii. The state says that flyers will be guided to one of 4 lines when they land: travelers who have tested negative, travelers still awaiting their test results, travelers who have chosen not to test and will need to quarantine, and a line for flight crews and active military personnel. We were here as the first trans-Pacific passenger flight landed in Honolulu since the pre-travel testing program went into effect overnight.
I just went for a wedding trip, but I had to make sure that I had to come back on the 15th. Earlier, I was planning on returning around the 12th and 13th, but I extended it to the 15th so I could participate in the 14-day bypass and not have to stay quarantined for the whole 14 days. I didn't want to quarantine when I got here, so I just decided to wait until the government said it was okay not to quarantine with these certain restrictions.
Now, there are different rules for the neighbor islands. On Hawaii Island, travelers must take a free antigen test once they arrive, but inter-island travelers must still quarantine there. On Kauai and Maui, a post-arrival test is voluntary. Hawaii's health department says there is a plan for pre-testing travelers coming in from Japan, although an official launch date has not been set just yet. At the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport, I'm Casey Lund for This Is Now.
Today we talked to Lieutenant Governor Josh Green about all this. First question, how is it possible that the Big Island can provide a test to incoming passengers, but that's not the case elsewhere?
Well, the governor decided to give some consideration to each of the mayor's requests. Each county is a little different. For instance, on Big Island, they only have 24 intensive care unit beds, so Mayor Kim wanted to be triple safe and wanted to have that extra test. Antigen tests are pretty inexpensive and readily available. The challenge, of course, is when you get the test. Having a test on day one is beneficial because people will be right at the airport and they'll get them right there, but it won't have that benefit of having a little time in between tests, which is what national experts often want. He's got a great tester. Kauai has only 9 intensive care unit beds, but they've made special provisions to be extra safe and close down more quickly if there's ever a surge. So each mayor gets some latitude, but the statewide process, the statewide rule is one rule, which is the test 72 hours before travel.
We also asked Green about what happens if a person arrives here and they don't have their test results yet.
So first off and foremost, most people will have had their test, uploaded it from a trusted partner, they're good to go. If they don't have their test yet, and it's still waiting, it's pending. They got it yesterday and the result is not back yet. They will go in quarantine. The moment they get it, it will be uploaded and in the system within an hour. Totally good. We'll add another 15 to 20 partners. We have 17 people in line right now nationally that gave us their applications just in the last 2 days. Needless to say, with all these national partners, we didn't want to race the last few and then have more confusion. So we'll add these partners. Now, if you still If you still don't get verified because your test came in and there's a glitch, we have trusted partners in Queens and Hawaii Pacific Health. I'll give you those emails right now that people will be able to do. Forgive me for looking at my notes.
That's okay.
COVID clearance at queens.org and COVID results at hawaiipacifichealth.org. Those guys are great helps. They've been standing with us through thick and thin, and I'll tell you, it's a benefit to have such good partners because this will be a turbulent time. Like I said earlier, I hope, though, people understand the benefit is to do it safely and start restoring our economy.
More criticism of the state's relaunch today from CBS travel editor Peter Greenberg. Here's what he had to say this morning on his Facebook forum.
It was rather disorganized and a little bit of a mess. And I said this before, I know I angered a lot of people in the Hawaii tourism industry. Let me put it this way. It's not my job to promote tourism. It's my job to report on the story. And if I report that you guys are messed up and trying to get your act together, guess what? You were messed up getting your act together. It's still confusing. Passengers and travelers are still unsure of what they need to do, what's being required of them. You had 5 months to figure it out, and you waited to the last minute. That's what I reported. So don't get mad at me. And I like to say, mahalo.
Well, I actually wrote to Mr. Greenberg and said to him, I don't know who he spoke to, but obviously we know it's going to be a very gradual process. As I indicated earlier, we're not going to all open up on October 15th. We'll be lucky to get up to 3 million visitors by the end of the year, when in 2019 we had 10.4 million visitors. So it is going to be slow, but that does not mean, in my opinion, that he should be telling people don't come to Hawaii. We have airlines that are serving us. Obviously, we have hotels that are open. We have businesses that feel a sense of confidence that they will start to reopen as well. So that really is very damaging when someone like that says it on a national medium.
Our team coverage of the relaunch of tourism continues. Here's Howard Dykes with a status check of what hotels are opening.
Hotels reopening today include the Montage Kapalua Bay, the Hyatt Regency Maui, and as we mentioned yesterday, the Royal Kona Resort. The current and former Prince Hotels open in November. The Ka'anapali Beach reopens after a $75 million renovation on December 1st, and Hilton Hawaiian Village reopens December 15 if the ducks and herons don't object. Alaska Airlines today goes back to twice daily SeaTac flights to all 4 of Hawaii's biggest airports. American Airlines returns to Kauai today. Hawaiian isn't doing that, though. Apart from its recently resurrected Vegas flights, it plans no further restarts until next month, and Southwest is doing the same. Even as tourism restarts, Hawaii airports are laying off more than 660 workers. They are employees of HMS Host, operator of airport restaurants and shops. HMS Host is converting 85% of all its Hawaii employees from temporary furloughs to permanent layoffs.
Hawaii's hotel industry has been waiting for this day for a long time. Here's Billy V with John DeFries, the head of the Hawaii Tourism Authority.
I'll start with this. Are we ready?
You know, Billy, the industry has been ready for quite some time. Each component to our travel delivery service, starting with airlines, ground transportation, hotels, activities. Each of them have been working diligently on their safety protocols and health standards. It's a critical first step that we are making today, but I have confidence in the leadership, and more importantly, I have confidence in the workforce of our industry.
Hawaii Tourism Authority has a campaign out, Malama Hawaii. Tell us a little bit about that.
Billy, that's more than a campaign. I think when I took office September 16th, I was intent on establishing an organizing principle that would carry us through the long-term recovery. And that organizing principle is the Hawaiian cultural value of Malama, to care for, to protect, to nurture. We're going to need to have that common ground or that center of gravity to come together as a unified community to move through this economic recovery. Concurrently, the Hawaii Visitors and Conventions Bureau was developing, without my knowledge at the time, the Malama Hawaii campaign, which basically encourages and incentivizes our visitor to donate their time by volunteering, voluntourism, into some of our nonprofits, whether it be the restoration of fish ponds or working in a kalo lo'i or just clearing shrubs from special locations. These nonprofits are in communication with the Bureau, and forging these relationships and participating hotels will extend a free night extension to their stay in exchange for that volunteer program. So we're pretty excited about it, but it's going to take more than a campaign to get through this pandemic.
We've got about 30 seconds, John. I want to give you a couple of moments. You mentioned at the presser with the governor the other day about cynicism in Hawaii. There are some that are glad the tourists are coming back. There are some that are saying, well, we're not ready. You have a word for everybody, please.
You know, I do. I think at this point, we need to understand a proclamation has been established by the governor. I'm obligated to align the tourism authority behind it. This is a calculated risk that is being taken. It's a serious issue. And I certainly understand and appreciate the polarized feelings that are here. But we will do everything we can to make this a successful relaunch and ask that the community help us by doing its part, by wearing a mask, socially distancing from one another, washing our hands, and staying out of large clusters of groups. We need to do this together, make a commitment to flatten the COVID curve permanently.
Governor Ige says the state will use federal funding to give jobless workers a $500 gift card to use at any Hawaii restaurant through December 15th. The cards are being mailed out right now to 116,000 residents who qualified for unemployment benefits last month.
We selected the restaurant industry because it's been one of the hardest hit and has the highest economic multiplier impact.
The state also plans to send out 30,000 cards to those who had PUA. It's all being paid for by $75 million in federal CARES Act money.
After claiming more than 217,000 lives and nearing 8 million cases in the U.S., the number of new COVID-19 cases across the Midwest are going up as temperatures are going down. Jay Gray has more.
The changing leaves of fall bring with them a major test for the country.
Right now, as we are in the period of time as we're entering into the cooler seasons of the fall and the colder season of the winter, that we are in a very precarious situation in the United States.
In the last week, 36 states plus the District of Columbia have recorded double-digit increases in coronavirus infections, 25 states showing an uptick in deaths. The numbers staggering. Close to 8 million cases now, more than 218,000 of those deadly. The spike hitting as many families wonder if they'll be able to get together for the holidays.
I think first and foremost, the answer to that is don't travel if you absolutely do not need to travel. Travel right now in the middle of a pandemic is not advised.
As the White House seems to be suggesting a turn towards so-called herd immunity, letting the virus run its course. Two senior White House officials referencing a document this week that says in part, those who are not vulnerable should immediately be allowed to resume life as normal. 80 medical experts have signed off on an open letter from leading researchers in the Lancet Medical Journal calling that approach a dangerous fallacy, unsupported by the scientific evidence. As the debate continues, so does the growing fear and spread of the virus. Jay Gray, NBC News.
Joining us now, new at noon, Jim Mendoza, who's actually on the mainland, taking care of some business there, and he's trying to get back home. Jim, what's the process like? You're one of the first.
Hi, Jonathan. First of all, I didn't do this specifically to come and get a pre-travel test. It's something that we have to do to get back home, and it just so happens that we had to make a very long drive to get to the urgent care clinic. That's one of the partners that Hawaii is partnering with on these pre-travel tests. And I'm in Bend, Oregon, actually. That's where I'm staying. But to get to the clinic here, it's about a 180-mile drive one way. So as soon as this interview is done, we're going to turn around and go back home. I'm with my wife. And it's an interesting process, to say the least.
Jim, let's talk about cost. What did set you back?
Well, you can do it through your insurance, or at least you can try to, but I wanted to eliminate any of the hassles of delays and things like that. So we're paying out of pocket for this, and it's $199 per test, and that's for that rapid test that they're doing that's accepted by the state of Hawaii. So it's not cheap. Before we decided to come here to Beaverton to the AFC Urgent Care, we ran down the whole list. I mean, everybody, Walgreens, the Quest Diagnostics. We are flying with Alaska Airlines, and they have a partnership going with a couple of outlets, Bartell Drugs, and also another one. But it all depends where you're at. I found that if you are staying in a place like in Portland, or if you're staying in Seattle, then they have several locations that you can get to. But when you're in an outlying area like we are at, that we're staying in, then it's not as convenient. You have to make a drive.
And it's just a swab test, right? That's all you had to do. Pretty simple stuff we've seen before.
I've had them both. I've had the really invasive one, and this one is nothing like that. It's just a swab around the inner part of your nostrils, and that's it. And then because the test results, they're pretty quick. We got our test result back in about 15 minutes.
Jim Mendoza there, rocking the facial hair,
We
looking
miss you,
good.
Jim.
Yeah, we miss you, Jim. But that costs $400 for the two of them, him and his wife. That's more than one of the tickets probably at these rates we're seeing right now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and I have friends that are going to Wyoming to go hunting from Kauai, and they're looking for a place to get tested on the way back home, and there's nothing around them.
Oh, I can't even imagine Wyoming. That's got to be super rural. You heard what Jim went through just to get to a testing facility, and it was quite the drive.
Yep.
All right, guys, Guy Hoggy now. Check of weather.
Aloha on this Thursday. A juicy cold front is approaching Kauai. Thunderstorms are firing up here and there, and Kauai could get swamped later today as that cold front moves down. Now, the cold front's not going to advance a whole lot over the next couple of days, although Oahu likely to see that cold front later tonight and the scattered showers that come with it. Now, those light winds will continue today and for the next several days. In fact, trade winds are not expected back until after Thursday of next week. So it's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, except for over on Kauai, where it's going to be cloudy and wet all day long and for the next several days. And that front will approach Oahu later tonight with more scattered showers, while the east end of the state remains rather dry. In fact, Kahului expecting mostly sunny skies, and they could hit 91. Now, as far as the surf, it's going to be small today. Fun waves continue in town, but we've got more waves on the way. The country going to see a solid swell this weekend starting tomorrow, and then a nice little pulse is going to move into the South Shores sometime on Sunday. So again, we're going to have cloudy skies with scattered showers for Kauai. Afternoon thunderstorms are possible, while the rest of the state, should remain mostly dry today. We'll have more details on air and online.
Let's see what else the internet is buzzing about, besides Jim Mendoza's facial hair, of course. Yeah, you're not supposed to play with your food, right? We've heard that over and over and over again, but that's not the case when talking about this next story. It's a game pack collaboration between Kraft, Heinz, and a game publisher, Big G Creative. There are 3 family-friendly games here. They come in packaging that looks like food products, like Jell-O, mac and cheese, and ketchup. They're designed for ages 8 and older. They take about 20 minutes to play. I don't know exactly what type of games they are, but I don't think they're going to be messy or anything. They're like games inside the packaging.
Got it. So it's not food inside.
Yeah, it's not like
packaging.
one of those messy games.
I see. And here's another really cool item. We've been talking about all these auctions happening. Well, it's a rare copy of Shakespeare's First Folio, which is a collection of 36 plays, including 18 works that had not previously appeared in print, and they were published shortly after the playwright's death. Now, it's only one of 5 complete copies still in private hands, and is considered to be among the most important collections of literature in the English language. Now, it sold for almost $10 million yesterday.
Whoa! Wow, that's a good one. That just reminded me when you were reading that I just put Romeo and Juliet on my Hulu watch list.
The Leonardo DiCaprio one? Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Such a classic.
It is good style in there too.
And heads up for Peloton users, I know there's a lot of you out there. So Peloton has issued a recall for a version of its clip-in bike pedals because the axle may break and injure users. So Peloton says the recall applies to PR70P pedals. They were placed on bikes sold between July 2013 and May 2016, affecting about 27,000 bikes. Now Peloton said it has received 120 reports of pedal breaks and 16 reports of injuries. Of those injuries, 5 people required medical care, including stitches, the company said.
Never been on a Peloton.
Me neither. I'm not a big cycling person.
I
But
mean,
it looks
I use
fun.
the Viki, but I don't want to go fast. I like the slow moving. I saw you on one not too long ago.
Biki's cool, yeah. But I love the instructors they have on the videos, and they have different personalities.
Yeah, our assistant news director, Nicole, was a big fan.
Oh, yeah. And this is really cool, you guys. So the pandemic has given many Americans a new perspective on life. And for some people, that led to discovering family they never knew. Here's Chris Martinez.
Philip Harrisek, seen here with his wife and child, always knew he was adopted, but never looked for his birth family until his son came home with a school project.
It was a map and it was color, your origins or where your family's from. And I had to tell him, I'm really not sure. So that kind of sparked my interest. And then when the COVID hit, we had so much time to do all this stuff. So
The 35-year-old took an ancestry DNA test and quickly discovered a connection.
First thing I saw was a mother and an aunt. My aunt reached out to me immediately.
This summer, he was able to hug his aunt, who only lives a couple hours away. He hasn't met his mother yet, but they've spoken a few times by phone.
Awesome. That was great.
Philip isn't the only one looking for family during the pandemic. Ancestry.com saw a 37% increase in new subscribers from March to July.
They want to fill that void.
Jay Rosenzweig is the founder of BirthParentFinder.com and says the pandemic is causing people to think about their mortality and giving many adoptees a sense of urgency. In the past few months, he's seen a big boost in clients wanting to find their birth families.
Our numbers have almost doubled. Not quite, but they've almost doubled. And it's pretty amazing.
Phil also met some cousins and discovered a brother who he plans to visit eventually.
That was a crazy feeling. That was nuts. It's like 35 years of being clueless, and all of a sudden within 10 seconds, it's like, here's everything.
After never knowing his heritage, Phil discovered he's Puerto Rican. He's hoping to take a trip there one day with his newfound family. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
A ripple effect of the pandemic I would have never thought of. Very
It
cool.
makes sense. People, maybe they're feeling lonely or they're just bored.
Yeah, and always wondering. Cool. We got one more good news story, right?
That's right. So it's a match marine researchers say is like finding a needle in a haystack. So a 1997 photo that was donated to the Pacific Whale Foundation reminded researchers of a humpback whale they recently saw. Now they matched the 20-year-old photo with one that was taken in January of this year by looking at the pigmentation patterns and the shape of the whale's tail. Now the foundation says there are about 21,000 humpbacks in the North Pacific, so the fact that they were able to match it is pretty incredible.
Yeah, they're like fingerprints, right? Is that story a whale tail? Okay, I'll stop.
Oh boy.
Well, I'm sorry I ended with that, guys. But that's going to do it for This Is Now on this Thursday. Kurt Caldwell coming up here in just about 7 minutes. We're going to break away from this live stream, bringing that to you on our H&N digital platforms. Again, that's coming up at 12:30. Kurt Caldwell certainly going to address the reopening of tourism for the state and any updates he has there. Don't forget, we're podcasting all the time.